That Don't Sound Right is a podcast about talking the way we did before the internet, when you could not prove anyone right or wrong.
All the expertise was contained in the people involved with the conversation. I'm Peter.
I'm Cecil, and I hope you enjoy our conversations. And as you listen, if you find yourself silently saying, "That don't sound right," send us a comment. You're one of us. Don't go into the woods without a compass.
Okay, I'm glad you specified don't go into the woods.
Compass.
Welcome back to another episode of That Don't Sound Right, a podcast about talking. Happy New Year, everyone. This is our first episode of 2023. Hope you had a good first week to your new year. But we're your co-hosts. I'm Peter Bielman.
I'm Cecil Davis.
And we're just trying to have a conversation without Googling it or fact-checking each other online. And I think you'll find out we're going to throw out some things that you might say, that don't sound right. I know I'm going to say that don't sound right because Cecil has the topic.
Right. So tonight's topic's on survival. Survival techniques.
Survival techniques, survival skills.
Skills. So if you ever read a survival skill book?
Oh, yeah. There's several of those skill books rolling around in my house.
Yeah. So there's always, little tips and pearls and techniques they have for you to survive in the wilderness on certain equipment. I mean, without certain equipment.
Right. But these are also in different scenarios, right?
Different scenarios, yeah.
So what are some of the scenarios are we talking about here?
So like if you don't have matches, you need to build a fire. If if your clothes have gotten wet and it's cold. If you're foraging for food. If you don't have a compass. There's always these techniques for building things or starting fires or building shelters. And so, but some of it requires you to have things with you.
Yes, and that's why I asked really specifically about the scenario. It's one thing to be caught out in the woods without a compass.
Yes.
How did you get into the woods without a compass?
Yes.
Why did you go to the woods without a compass?
No, we were up on Springer one time, and we met a mother and two daughters, and they had come in without a map or a compass. And they were trying to find a town called Suches.
Well, they were just hiking along is this the Appalachian Trail?
They were on an intersecting trail.
Okay.
And they were nowhere near where they thought they were.
Were they backpacking? Or just hiking?
They were backpacking. They had backpacks on.
Okay, all right.
But we told them we told them very clearly they were not headed toward where they thought they were headed toward.
Okay.
They were determined.
Ah, yes.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
So,
I've run into a group of backpackers also on Mount Rogers. Easy to get turned around up there.
Yes.
Even easier when there's a foot of snow on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Even easier when some of these people have never been backpacking before.
Yeah.
Even easier when you've never seen snow before because they were from Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they thought they were heading towards a particular shelter, and they weren't anywhere close.
Yep. That's how you get messed up quick.
I don't know if they had a map or a compass.
Yep.
I would assume that they did, but maybe they were just following the blazes, which were white
right.
in the snowstorm.
Yeah. No, it's hard to... Yeah, Rogers, and some of those are on the ground, too. They're on rocks. So these survival guides try to teach you what to do in these situations. Number one, we should go ahead and do the words of wisdom. Don't go into the woods without a compass.
Okay, I'm glad you specified don't go into the woods.
A compass. Yeah, maybe not always carry a compass if you're walking down the street, but if you're in the woods, have a compass.
Now, you know that a compass doesn't work in a car.
Really? But they put compasses in cars.
Well, they do because they use the compasses that are designed to be in cars to work on cars.
Because the metal?
Yeah, because the metal cage that you're sitting in interferes with the compass that it holds in your hand.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so don't try to do any dead reckoning with a compass inside a car when you're driving around the city.
If you're going to the woods, always carry a compass.
Always have a compass. I wonder what the compass sales are these days.
I don't know. I wonder how many people know how to use a compass.
Are they flying off the shelves anymore?
I don't know. You have a compass. I have a compass.
I probably have a compass or two.
Several compasses. Yeah.
Well, also, everyone has a compass on their phone.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're in the city and you need to find your way, you can always look at your map. Now, don't Google the map. Just bring up your compass and see if you can get through it. But don't do it in the car. It'll still mess up.
Would you ever go into the woods with just a compass on your phone?
No.
I wouldn't either.
No, I wouldn't.
I would always have an analog.
Because of the battery situation.
Right, and then the reception too. Does it have to have the cell tower to use the compass?
That I'm not sure of.
Yeah, I think it does.
If it does, then that's not going to help either. We should do an experiment. We should take our phones, turn it on airplane mode.
Yep.
Theoretically, in fact, we could do it here in your backyard, turn it on airplane mode.
See if the compass still works.
And see if,
So
but don't go into the woods without a compass. That's our words of wisdom.
That's right. Because it's awkward to have to eat your friends.
But that's the other part of it, right? So
one of the techniques I had learned as a kid was starting a fire with a shotgun. So the scenario is, I guess, you're in the woods, you don't have matches,
right?
But you have a shotgun with you.
Okay.
So maybe you've been hunting,
right?
You got lost. For some reason, you didn't bring your compass with you, and you don't have matches with you or a lighter. So the way this guide said to do, this book said to do, was to take a shotgun shell, cut the top of the shell off, empty out the shot, stuff a rag down into the shell, fire the shell into the air, or fire the rag into the air, then get it and put it on your tinder and start a fire.
Okay, that don't sound right. There's a lot of problems with
There's
this.
a lot of problems with that. So I tried it. I tried to start a fire this way.
Okay, so we need to get into the background of this experiment. So, how old were you?
I was probably 13, 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
That puts it in perspective for everyone, right?
So I want to try this technique. So first thing you did, emptied out the shell, put the rag in, shot it into the air. So what do you think the first problem with doing that is?
Finding the rag.
Yes, finding the rag.
I mean, it's going to be 50 feet up in the air, and
right.
By the time it lands, the fire is probably extinguished.
Yes, correct.
Did they specify what kind of rag? I mean, is it just a piece of your cotton T-shirt?
Yeah, just something,
that's
just anything. Yeah, that's supposed to do it. But you're right. Number one, you have to find where the rag lands. And two, it still has to be smoldering enough to get back to your kindling.
Yeah.
And now you've got to transfer it back there and still keep it smoldering. So either you've got to have your kindling with you and go to where the rag falls. Yeah. So that's the first problem, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't really ignite.
Do you take the wadding out, the plastic wadding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the second way was we soaked the rag in gasoline.
Now I'm on to this.
Yeah.
But here's a problem with that. If you're in a survival situation, you probably don't have gasoline around with you, right?
Exactly. You don't have anything. Yeah. If you have gasoline or fuel with you, you probably had matches with you.
You probably had a way to light it.
Yeah. So that also didn't work.
Okay.
Same problems. You can't get the rag back to the kindling fast enough.
What happened when you did that, though?
It still didn't really ignite.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how far up in the air did the rag go? The gasoline-soaked rag?
It goes far enough that it's hard to track.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the third thing we thought was maybe shooting it directly at the kindling. The problem with that is obvious, hopefully. Is that the muzzle blast just blows everything everywhere. And so,
all that work gathering the kindling, and you blew it to the next county.
Right, yeah. So maybe somebody can use that survival technique. I was not successful with it.
Now, I would have thought that the way to do it would be to take the gunpowder out.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
Sprinkle it all over your kindling.
Mm-hmm.
And then find a sharp rock. And then pop the primer, hit the primer out.
Oh, yeah.
And let the primer shoot out, and then catch this gunpowder on fire that's on the ground. And since it's gunpowder and it's on the ground, it doesn't explode, it just sizzles.
Yeah.
And it would sizzle and cook your kindling, and then you'd have the fire to start. I would think that's the way to do it.
That would be a good idea.
Did you try that?
No.
Okay. That's maybe... I'm not going to ask our listeners to try that.
Yeah, that one, because then you're having to pop that primer in your hand. I think there'll be some, it's in the shell still.
Yeah, you leave it in the shell.
But still, you're
I don't know what that primer's like when you pop the end of it. If it makes how big of a pop it makes.
Yeah, I don't either. But, so anyways, I did not learn how to start a fire with a shotgun.
Another method I've seen to use, and I don't know if you've seen this, that if you have a flashlight with an old incandescent bulb, you take apart your flashlight so the incandescent bulb is exposed. So it's not covered by the lens or anything.
Right.
And then you carefully break the glass off. That's all that's left is the filament. And and you put that gently, carefully into your wad of tinder. It's got to be very dry and light. And then you turn the flashlight on. And the incandescent bulb burns, it gets hot, oxidizes, and it's hot enough to start a fire.
Have you tried that?
I have not tried it, but I've seen it done.
In a YouTube video?
On Bear Grylls.
Well, that's the thing is that, all right, so now in the first scenario, how many shells are you willing to shoot or tear up before you stop? And in your scenario, are you willing to ruin your flashlight to start the fire?
Yeah.
Which is more important?
Yeah, I think if you're desperate for a fire to boil water, you're gonna try it.
Yeah.
You're gonna try it because you're probably coming into your rope.
Yeah. If you're dismantling your flashlight, then you're
right. And you might try the shotgun trick a couple times.
Yeah.
But still, you can't really eat unless you cook the animal, and you can't cook the animal without a fire. So what good is it to have shotguns except for protection?
Yeah. So now, so I haven't tried the flashlight thing. I'll need to try that.
Well, it's challenging these days because flashlights don't have incandescent bulbs anymore. They're either
LED.
LEDs. So what do you got? You got nothing.
Got nothing. So now your flashlight's out. Still hadn't started the fire.
Right.
You've got a broken flashlight and a shotgun and no fire. So next survival tip that I have learned, I saw over the years, was creating a compass with water, a leaf, and a needle.
Yes, I remember this one.
Yeah. So if I remember it right, you take the needle and you magnetize it against a piece of wool.
Right.
So now you have to have a needle.
Mm-hmm. Which you probably have in your survival kit along with your matches, but that's beside the point.
Right. Yeah. So your survival kit would have to not had matches, but did have to have a needle. Then you would rub it on some wool, so you'd have to be wearing something wool.
And I'm not really certain about the wool part. I guess because
why does that work?
Why does wool work over, say, acrylic or cotton?
Yeah, because you can do that. You can magnetize iron by hitting it. You ever done that?
By hitting it?
Mm-hmm.
No, I haven't done this.
Yeah, you magnetize iron that way. I've done it before.
How strong of a magnet does it become?
Not very strong.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But if you have a needle, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be very strong either. Anyway, so you rub it on. You rub it
on wool.
And
then you carefully float a leaf in a saucer of water or a top or whatever you have. Maybe a puddle of water, and then you carefully drop the needle on the leaf. Mm-hmm. And supposedly that becomes now a magnet, and the needle will turn to magnetic north.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think that's how I remember it. Yeah. Yes, yeah.
You ever tried it?
No, I usually...
Because you always have a compass.
No, here's the thing, is I usually have a watch, and I know how to find north with a watch.
Now, I never could figure this one out. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's got to be a watch with hands. It's got to be an analog watch.
No, it doesn't. If you have a digital watch, you draw the time out.
On the face of the...
On something, just draw the what, but you have to have the hands.
Yes.
So if you know what time it is, whether you have the hands or not, then you get something and you kind of sketch out, with a rock or a stick.
Actually, I know this technique. I've never understood how to do it. So explain it.
All right. So what you do is so let's just use your watch face as the example. Okay. What you do is you get a stick and you put a stick perpendicular to the face of the watch, and you get. Now, the sun has to be shining. You can't really do this on a cloudy day because you got to have the sun.
Okay.
All right. You got to do this on a sunny day because you got to have the sun, and it casts a shadow onto your watch face.
Okay.
All right. And what you do is you line up that shadow with the hour hand. Yeah, you line up the shadow with the outer hand. And since our sun, this only works in the northern hemisphere. Since our sun is in the southern hemisphere. It's always in the south. It's casting a shadow towards north, not due north at noon. But if you can imagine at noon, that shadow is pointing directly north because it's exactly equal. So if you look on your watch at noon, if you line up the shadow, now you're looking straight at north.
Okay.
Now what happens as the sun moves? It starts casting a shadow at a different place. It starts, if you look on the clock, it starts casting the shadow at 1 o'clock. So if you were to line up your clock at 1 o'clock, the hour hand at 1 o'clock, now the number 12 is now pointing at
north.
North.
Okay.
Now, from what I understand, that technically, if you really want to get a little bit closer, because of the way the sun moves and where we are, is it's halfway between 12 and 1.
Okay.
That's due north. So anywhere between that 12 and 1, it's going to give you a good idea. Now, if you kind of are aware of where you are and how the sun is shining,
right,
then you really don't even need the watch, right?
Right.
You can just stick the if you have an idea, okay, it's between 2 and 3 o'clock.
Right.
Stick a stick in the ground. Where's the shadow? Okay, so it's going to be towards the left of that shadow. Okay,
Yeah.
and in the morning it'll be towards the right. And you have to be mindful of daylight savings time.
Right. Yeah. And it has to be sunny. But other than that, you're good.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's a fun little skill to have.
Yeah. No, that explains that for me. So do you think you could purify water without any supplies?
Purifying water without any supply. Without any supplies, Cecil?
So if we don't have a water purification system with you, what would you do?
Well, let's see. I would create a filter.
Okay.
All right, and that filter would be as much sand as I can find, not dirt,
Yeah.
not organic stuff, but just sand.
Yeah.
And then I'd also, assuming that I was able to start fire with my shotgun shells, I would have some charcoal lying around.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I would layer sand and charcoal in some kind of vessel or something. Hopefully, I mean, maybe a bag, maybe if I had a stuff sack or something.
Yeah.
And then I would slowly start dripping water through that and let it filter out. That's probably the best thing I could do to filter water in that situation.
Right. So if you don't have a fire, or you could boil it or something to boil it.
Well,
in.
I guess if I had a fire, I could have spoiled the whole thing, couldn't I?
Yeah. So this would be if you didn't have access to something to boil it in,
Right.
or water. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I've seen is to do the dig a hole. And again, you have to have a can or something. But you dig a hole, a fairly deep hole. You put the can down in the hole. You cover it with a piece of tarp.
You also need a tarp.
And also you need a tarp or a piece of rain jacket or something. You weight it down on the edges of the tarp, but then you put a rock in the middle of it so it forms a inverted teepee
Or a cone.
a cone.
Yeah.
And so at night, and again, this has to be a certain time of the year too. Mm-hmm. The moisture out of the soil will condense against the top of that, and then run down to that point and drip down to the can.
I have seen that method. Yeah, generally it's a big hole you're digging.
Yeah, you can do a big one.
You do a big hole.
Yeah,
and
you'd have to get a lot of water.
Yeah, right. And if you have a big tarp, yeah. No, I have seen that. I've never tried that one myself.
I haven't tried that either.
I haven't tried that one.
I've only been lost. I've only been momentarily lost.
Really?
Yeah. Like I haven't been lost overnight.
Right.
Yeah. Where I was really worried. I mean, I've walked off trail before.
Yes.
I've been, lost not lost, but misplaced.
Yeah, I've had that similar experience where I knew, okay, if I didn't know exactly where I was, and every time I went somewhere, I couldn't get to where I was going. But I knew how to, once and for all, get out. I knew where there's a body of water that I could walk down to and then kind of do a reset.
Yeah, the worst time I got lost, we were in an area where, worst case scenario, we could have walked out. We could have walked all the way out.
Yeah.
We might not have gotten where we were wanting to go to, but we could have gotten back to a road.
Yeah.
And gotten out.
Well, that's what happened to me when I came across these backpackers. When I was scouting out a backpacking trip to take some folks on. And it was the first week in April, going up to Mount Rogers, and it was the snow just started coming down. And the didn't snow anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I had in mind to go hiking towards the top of the mountain, and I couldn't get there. Yeah. Every time I took a turn, I kind of got looped back to where I started from. And for the life of me, I could not figure out how to get there. But in my wanderings, I kept running across these group. It was five backpackers. And, we were going through waist-deep snowdrifts.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the snow was coming down. Yeah. The wind was starting to really blow.
Yeah.
But I knew where I was. I knew how to get back to my car. I just couldn't how to figure out to get to that destination where I was going to camp the night. And then I was going to hike back. Well, it was all for a reason, because eventually I gave up. I said, okay, I am not figuring this out. And I even had a map and a compass.
Yeah.
I am not figuring this out because the trails were just too covered with snow. I couldn't figure out where I was going. So I come across this tent, and it was kind of put up makeshiftly, and there were, you could see there were people stacked up in their bodies and they're bulging out the sides of the tent. And I just, as I was walking by, I said, hey. And to make a long story short, they got my attention, and I walked back up the hill to see what was going on, and it was these 5 college students. But they had stopped eating, they stopped drinking, they were just kind of wandering around. They had flannel T-shirts or flannel shirts and jeans. They were not equipped, dressed for the snowstorm. I mean, it was starting to get really cold. I mean, it was already below freezing. The wind was howling, so I'm sure the wind chill was getting way well below freezing or well below zero. And they said, what do you think we should do? Because they were miles from where they needed to be. I said, I think you need to pack up and you need to hike down off this rock with me, and I'm going to take you back to your cars because I don't think you're going to make it out here.
That's probably good advice.
So, yeah, we got all their stuff up. I had to carry some of their stuff. One guy was, he would not stop shivering. So we finally got him going. We got down the hill and got to my truck. We all piled on my truck, drove around to the other side of the mountain, got them in their cars. Then we went to Sparta. We got them a hotel room in Sparta. And good. They treated me out for pizza. They bought me pizza for saving their life.
You did save their life.
I don't think I saved their life as much. They probably would. One of the guys probably would have had some really black fingertips because he had the gloves without the fingertips. I think they'd have been miserable.
You saved him from a hard night.
Yeah, it would have been a very, very hard night. Not fun.
Hard night. Well, it doesn't sound right, but you've come to the end of another episode of That Doesn't Sound Right.
It's our first one of the new year.
That's right, season 3.
So keep those blogs coming.
Yeah. If you want to blog on this episode, this would be a good one to blog on. There's a lot to still be said about survival techniques.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure some folks have some survival techniques that don't sound right, or love to hear some that worked.
Right, yeah, one that worked would be even better.
That'd be really fun to hear about.
That Don't Sound Right is a production of TDSRpodcast in conjunction with Campbell City Studios. I am your co-host, Cecil Davis, and I also do your sound engineering. Your web design is by Peter Billman, your other host, and our graphic design is by Emily Billman. Our product tester is Giorgio. Our brand ambassador is Brent. And as always, our listener number 1 is
Scott.
So until next Saturday night, keep talking.
And stay curious.